Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Dinah, and most of you may have met me already from previous trainings at some point or maybe one of our events. I am the volunteer engagement coordinator at Oakland Literacy Council. I'm also a volunteer tutor. And today's workshop, in Pathways to Possibilities, Empowering Adult Learners to Explore Career and Education Pathways, is all about giving you simple and practical ways to help your students think about what's next beyond tutoring, whether that's more education, training, or maybe even a new career. And how can we connect those conversations to the tutoring that you're already doing every single time you meet with them? And so this is a little bit of an interactive session. I know we have a lot of people, so it makes it just a little bit more challenging to get everyone involved. But I do want to invite all of you to share your thoughts or ideas in the chat box. And you are welcome to unmute your line as well at different points. Feel free to participate in whatever way feels most comfortable to you. I know some of you might already recognize each other from other onboarding events that we may have had in the past. So I know some of you might already feel comfortable with this type of a layout. I do want to point out that there is a link to resources that I have shared in the chat box already. I'm going to send that once again to anyone who is just joining right now. So you'll see that in there multiple times. So I apologize for those of you that are seeing that already through the chat, but you can go ahead and access all of the resources that I'm going to reference here today on that link, including access to the slides. So if you'd like to access the slides, it's just PDF versions of what I'll be showing today. Okay, so before we dive in, I do want to also give you just a quick overview of how we're going to spend our time together today. We're going to start with just a brief reflection to get us thinking about how our career paths have developed. And then we're going to talk about what career and education pathways really mean for adult learners and why these conversations matter. Even in tutorings that are focused specifically on reading, math, or English. And from there, I'll walk you through a few user-friendly tools. There's simply just websites that you can use with your students, including mynextmove.org, Roadmap to Opportunity, as well as Burlington English, which some of you are already familiar with. And then I will share ready-to-use lesson ideas and handouts along the way. Later, we're going to take a look at how we can help our learners take next steps beyond tutoring by highlighting two partner organizations that we work very closely with, Oakland 80 as well as Michigan Works. And I want to share what support and resources they offer if you're not familiar with them already. I know that I find that a lot of our tutors aren't necessarily familiar with these organizations and what they offer. So I do want to make sure that you're aware of it in case you find that it can be useful for your students. And then we'll wrap up by reviewing our key takeaways for today, asking you to maybe name one small action step that you want to try with a student. And then, of course, we'll leave some time for questions at the end. And again, this is meant to be practical and flexible. Please feel free to share in the chat or unmute your line to respond if you'd like to. And for any of you that are just joining, I know a few people have been kind of trickling in. I just want to give you a quick welcome. This is Pathways to Possibility. It's just a workshop on how tutors can support adult learners in exploring career and education pathways. And we're going to share practical tools and simple strategies that you can use in your tutoring sessions to help learners think about what's next. So like I said, feel free to chat or unmute your lines as we go. There's going to be a link to handouts in the chat box. Feel free to access those along the way. Okay, so before we talk about how to support our students and our learners and exploring their futures, I want us to just pause and take a moment and reflect on our own paths, right? Career journeys are rarely straight lines. I know mine was not. They're shaped by interests, experiences, opportunities, and people who supported us along the way. I want to ask you a few reflection questions, and you don't need to overthink them. Just notice what comes to mind, right? As you reflect, notice where your career path may have felt really easy, or maybe it was really hard and challenging. I also want you to think about how similar or different this process might feel for the adult learners that you're working with, okay? So let's think about these questions. What career did you dream of as a child? And how did your interests change over time? Also think about what helped you find your career path. Okay, seconds to think about that. So I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes, but I'd love to hear from maybe one or two of you if you're willing to share. Or you're welcome to maybe share any reflection thoughts that came to mind in the chat box. Okay. So as you think about these questions, what comes to mind? And it can be anything. There's no right or wrong answer here. Just is anyone willing to share about their career path a little bit?
Hi,
I
Dinah.
can.
I can share.
Okay, wonderful.
What career did I dream of as a child? Baseball player for the Detroit Tigers.
Love that.
Um, how did my interest change over time? Well, I think I realized by the time I got to high school and played high school baseball, I wouldn't be good enough to go much further. So that kind of dashed my dreams. But
Oh no.
what helped me find my career path? Well, I found I was good in English classes, writing classes in high school, and had a influential teacher who always encouraged me in writing. Um, and I think by the time I got to college, I knew writing would be some part of my career. So I got my degree in English, and I've been uh, working the past 16 years, really my whole career, as a content writer. Um,
Oh,
was in
wonderful.
journalism before that, worked in a nonprofit as a writer, and now I work independently as a content writer. So that's my path.
Didn't quite turn out the way that maybe you thought as a
No.
child or what you wanted, but things turned out. You found your way, right? Someone was able to support you, it seemed like.
Yeah, and I had some
Uh,
influential college professors, and actually, I wound up writing about the Detroit Tigers a bit when I worked at the Detroit News in sports. So there was a connection later on.
yeah, so things that are of interest to you still kind of took place in your career. So yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
Sure.
I'd love to hear maybe
Yeah.
one more story
Oh,
if anyone wants to share.
sure. Can you wait? Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Karen.
Okay.
Thanks,
So
Jeff.
my story, what did I dream of as a child career? Nothing. I had no idea. I was just seeking out what I enjoyed. I loved drawing and being outside. I'm definitely an artist. And then moved through high school, and something in me did choose a co-op. It was one semester to do venipuncture, to draw blood in a hospital. I knew I wanted a hospital experience. So something was telling me, there's something interesting here. I realized I was very much a people person, and I loved, science. So I got to college and started out, my adult children laugh. I was a computer science major. And this is somebody, now I have trouble using the remotes to turn on the television, so they just can't imagine me. But I loved the logic of it. The logic of they were teaching us computer languages, Fortran and Cobalt. And so I thought, oh, this, I love the way this is so logical. It really spoke to the thought process. But I had an epiphany one morning sitting at Wayne State University in their basement, no windows, 25 people in there looking like they were pulling their hair out, trying to find the errors on these long green and white papers coming out of these old computers. And I looked up and I just had this moment of, I just don't think this is my path. This is, and so I just knew, didn't want to do that, started to take my basic undergrad classes. So I took biology and chemistry, and that's where I said, "Oh, these science classes are really interesting to me, microbiology." And I want to say I kind of felt it. So I just kept following my interest. And then I had all the prerequisites to apply to Wayne's nursing program. And I said, oh, look, I have all the prerequisites. I'm a people person. I like science. I'll get my undergraduate degree in nursing. I can always change paths in graduate school. I need a baccalaureate in something. I was practical. I knew I would get a job. I didn't want to fight to have a job. I said, they will always need nurses. So my practical side said, good start. And so I got a nursing degree and never went back for a master's. I started to have my family and got certifications in case management and went that route. But I will say something else, the discovery. I chose a career where back in 1984, 90%, I'm throwing out a figure that's arbitrary, but the majority of jobs were in hospitals. And I knew that I would never have the personality to work in a large bureaucracy. And I thought, oh boy, what am I doing? I am getting a degree in something where only a very small percent back then, there were other options. But I followed it. I did internship through, in the hospital, and I went right into home care. And then I found how much I like working independently. I'm somebody who needs to work remotely, work independently, be a part of a team, but my job is not a part of having colleagues, but I work independently. And I just kept following the fit. And it's been a beautiful, satisfying fit for me, but very circuitous. Just really didn't know where I was going, just kept following instinct. And it led me in the right direction for me.
Yeah. And, I think that's what happens to, some of us, we're just kind of going and exploring on our own and,
Yeah.
seeing what opportunities come up and just on the spot, just trying to figure out whether or not that's a good pathway for us. So, as we think about our own career paths, I just want you to think about how our students might feel. Sometimes, you know, I think I certainly felt this when I was younger. I felt like things were linear and that things would just progress in my career, but turns out it was more just all over the place and just taking on opportunities when they came up and, taking the encouragement from managers and directors along the way. So, I think that when you are at the start of trying to figure out where your career is going to go, I think people can feel discouraged thinking that there isn't going to be the right path or they're not following the path, but sometimes we can share a little bit of ourselves with our students so that they understand that that's normal. Of course, paths aren't always linear. Interests change, opportunities come up. And so really what we want to do is just provide some encouragement to help our students move things forward and just keep moving in their studies. And again, this reflection helps us really show why it's important and why it matters in adult education. So next, we're going to take a look at what do we mean by career and education pathways, and how can tutors support learners without needing to have all the answers for them. So I hope that little conversation sparked some good memories and reflections for you. Why did we start with that? Well, because your journey is going to mirror what many adult learners experience. Their interests shift, their dreams evolve, and often they're trying to figure out really what their next step is, all at the same time while juggling families, Maybe they might have a full-time or a part-time job, or maybe going through some major life transitions, or might have some personal things that are going on. And career exploration is important because, first of all, it is going to build motivation for them. So when learners can connect their lessons and their goals uh, to what matters to them, their persistence is going to increase, and it provides purpose. Reading practice or vocabulary work feels much more meaningful to them when it ties to a job or an education goal. It also opens doors for them. Many learners don't know what opportunities exist, what's out there for them. And so exploring options shows them some real possibilities. And we're going to point out some tools that you can use with your students for that. And it builds confidence for them. So even just the small little steps that they're taking toward their goal, every lesson that they have with you can change a learner's sense of what's possible. And so what I want to stress in this workshop is that your role as a tutor isn't necessarily to be a career counselor. You're just there to help guide them in terms of reflection, to explore options, and just continually helping them to take those small, realistic steps forward. And this is why the tools that we're going to explore today can be powerful. They make it easy to start these conversations with your students in very supportive and accessible ways. So before we talk about those tools or pathways, it's important to pause and think about where our learners are starting. Many adult learners come to tutoring with very immediate and short-term goals, goals that they know that they need, but sometimes they don't always know how they're going to use them in the future necessarily. So things like, I want to read better, I need help with math, or I want to speak better English. Those goals are real and they are important, but often underneath those learning goals, there's something deeper. Sometimes they don't know it yet, but sometimes they do. And it's maybe a hope for a better job, more stability, maybe being a role model for their children, or just simply having more options. And so as tutors, we don't need learners to have a clear career plan. In fact, many of our students don't, but our role is to gently listen for those motivations that they might mention to you and create a safe space for them to surface. So when learners feel heard and understood, that's going to build trust. They'll probably continue to share more with you. And when their learning is connected to something that matters to them, their motivation is going to increase. So this is where career and education conversations begin, with having these small little conversations, not necessarily with a website or a worksheet like the ones I'm going to be sharing with you, but just with curiosity, genuine interest, and getting those conversations started. So I do want to pause briefly, and I want to point out that one resource that you're going to receive is going to be a handout called Career Conversation Starters. It's just a one-page handout, and I will send a link to it right now in the chat window, but you'll be able to access it on that page that I mentioned earlier. But if you want to access it specifically right now, I'm sending it to you. It just has it's just a quick reference with open-ended questions to guide conversations about goals and interests and next steps. It'll give you questions that you can ask your student to get to know them better. It will help explore their goals and connect their learning to those goals. And it's not necessarily a script or anything like that. It's just, and you don't need to use all the questions at once, but you can just use it as a support tool. And it's especially helpful if you're not sure how to start a conversation with your student about it, or you want to dig a little deeper. Okay, so I'd love to hear from you again for a moment. And again, feel free to share either in the chat, or feel free to unmute if you feel comfortable. What kinds of goals have your learners shared with you already? They may have already shared some details with you, maybe not. Maybe you've struggled to maybe pull some of this information out from your students, which sometimes with some students, it can be a little bit more challenging, of course. Has anyone shared any career or educational goals with you specifically? And they may
My
not necessarily be just learning or career goals. It can be even something more personal. That's fine too.
my student, yeah, Martin. My student is a Korean lady, and her main goal is to converse in English. And since she has two children, she wants to attend their functions where they have activities for the kids so she can attend those. And she wants to feel confident in talking. And she's very shy. So that kind of makes it much harder. So that
Thank
is one of her, I think, primary goals. So, and she's
you
working
for sharing
towards that.
that.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I know we're talking about, paid jobs and careers and things like that, but as a parent, that's, part of her job. She's, got to be involved with her child's school, has to go to activities. She might want to volunteer, but sometimes they might be hesitant to volunteer for a classroom party or a field trip because they're worried about their communication skills, but that's something that they want to build on. So, building lessons around those type of situations can be helpful. Thank you for sharing that. Is there maybe one more thing that someone might want to share?
I can talk a little bit about my student because in her native country, she actually has a degree in journalism and one in law. So she was a press secretary there. And when she came here and we've been talking and thinking about things, her default answer was she wanted to go to school to become a nurse. But I had talked to her, Pauline had talked to her, I think the woman who helps with like school and everything had talked to her, and we just kind of had to ask her, are you sure that's what you want to do, or is that your default answer? And I do think obviously nursing is a great career, but nothing in her past has she wanted to do that. So we kind of felt like, oh, maybe this is just what she thinks that I'm in the US and a great career for me would be nursing. But we've kind of actually had to have some longer conversations and kind of dig a little deeper to see, why she feels that way. And Pauline and I think she would be a great translator. Obviously she has spent so much time reading, writing, has a journalism degree, has, gone to law school and everything. And we're like, would that interest you or do you want to be a nurse? So it was just kind of interesting because she did kind of come in with this goal of, I want to go to nursing school. And we just kind of had to walk it back and have further discussion about if that's really what she saw herself doing or what she felt she needed to answer or what she needed to, explore.
And that's great because, sometimes, people often say what they think people want to hear sometimes. Or, she's like, okay, I should probably have an idea of like what a career goal is. And like you said, nursing was that default, but, giving her kind of those questions just to kind of confirm, like, is that the right direction based off of experiences that she has and her education? Does she really want to, completely switch paths? If so, of course, then that's great. But, if not, if she's still kind of reverting back to like, you know, what her traditional path was and what has worked best for her in the past, then, that might be a great way to go. But thank you for reflecting, with her and guiding her and just kind of opening up that conversation to maybe really have her think about it a little bit more. I know a few of you have been providing your information through the chat box. So I just want to just acknowledge those as well. It looks like, someone wanted to become a naturalized citizen. So I know that you've been able to assist with that. I appreciate sharing that. Student wanted to become a manager at her office. Okay, great. A student was a physician in her native country and works here as a home care aide, and she would like to improve her English to work here as a medical assistant. So it looks like she's already thinking about what that next step might be for her. A student wanted to be a physical therapist assistant, but is now pivoting to do in-home elderly care. Okay, yeah, so some paths are kind of moving around. So yeah, there's a few more responses here. A student worked for 20 years in a bank in Syria, but when you met with the student, she wanted to be a preschool aide and now has that job. But now, now maybe she wants to work at a bank. So maybe she's going to be switching paths. But at least, she's getting some experience with the job that she has, and she's probably practicing English. And hopefully, maybe she'll be able to get back into the banking industry. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. So this is exactly how pathways begin, right? Real experiences, um, interests, hopes, dreams, and thank you for building on those conversations and helping our students explore what's possible. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how we can assist our students to do that. Okay, so now that we've talked about learner goals and the kind of conversations that you're already having with your students, let's zoom out a bit and talk about what we mean by career and education pathways with our students. When we use the word pathway, we're not necessarily talking about a single straight line from point A to point B. For many adult learners, pathways are flexible, they're personal, and oftentimes they're nonlinear. And a career education pathway is really a series of small, realistic steps. We're building on skills and gaining credentials along the way. We're exploring options along the way, and we're adjusting all the way through it. And another aspect is understanding that there are often multiple routes into the same career. College is one option, of course, and that's what a lot of people think of, but there are also certificates that students can obtain or even get on-the-job training. And there's also short-term programs that can get students started. And so one of the most powerful things that we can do as tutors is start with what learners already bring to the table. All of our adult learners have some skills, some knowledge, and especially life experiences, whether it's from past jobs, whether it's parenting experience, community roles, or experiences from their home country. When we build on those strengths and those experiences, it becomes much easier for our learners to imagine new possibilities and what could be next for them. So, for example, I want you to imagine a student who works part-time in a restaurant. Maybe they're bussing tables or they're prepping food in the kitchen. That student might not think of that experience as a career starting point, but if it is something that they enjoy somewhat, you can help them explore related opportunities in areas of hospitality. Maybe it's customer service, maybe it's diving into culinary arts, or maybe even kitchen management. All of these areas are going to build on things that they're already experiencing on the job, things like teamwork, time management. Sometimes I don't know how people who work in kitchens manage to put out the amount of food out in everyone's orders, especially if it's like a big menu. So they're very good with time management, communication skills, if they're using it every day in their current job. So these are all things that you can bring to their attention. And by recognizing and naming these skills that they're putting into action every day and these strengths, we can help them see how their past and their present experiences can support their future goals. And so this approach, again, builds confidence, increases their motivation, and creates a foundation for a meaningful career exploration. And so as tutors, it helps to keep this big picture idea in mind, because almost any learning activity that they're going to experience with you can connect to a pathway. So of course, these pathways don't exist in a vacuum. Learners often face real barriers as well as powerful motivators that shape what's possible. So I know some of you may already experience, or some of these barriers are based off of what your students are telling you. But I just kind of want to briefly review them, and how understanding some of these barriers and motivators, how we can better support our learners, of course. So many adult learners face obstacles that shape their journey. It might include limited time because of work and family responsibilities. They might have transportation issues that can be a real challenge when it comes to getting to a job or getting to a job on time or consistently, or even childcare challenges. The language barriers are real, and just feeling discouraged from past school experiences. So understanding these barriers helps us approach each learner with a whole lot of patience and flexibility. And despite these challenges, adult learners often have powerful reasons for showing up. They want those better jobs. They want more stability for their family, improved confidence, and really greater independence in daily life. Oftentimes, some of our students are relying on other people to do things for them, help them go to the bank, help them go to the doctor. And, it's great that they have, in some cases, some resources to help them out. They realize that they can't always keep asking for help, so they really do want that independence. And many of our learners are deeply motivated by their children, of course, their community, or any personal goals that they have held for years. So when we understand these barriers and motivators, we can see their needs a little bit more clearly. Sometimes we don't always think of this, but we have to remind ourselves that our adult learners often need a lot of encouragement. I know that we're always encouraging young children, but sometimes we forget that our adult learners need this as well. Practical guidance, and if really someone who believes in them and is there for them every week, and that safe space that you offer them. So with all of that said, again, you're not expected to be a career counselor or anything like that. Again, your role is just to guide their reflection and explore what's possible with them. Okay, so to bring this idea of pathways to life, I want to share a real example from Oakland Literacy Council. It's a student whose journey shows just how small steps and steady support and clear goals can lead to meaningful change. So Kelly came to Oakland Literacy Council while she was working as a janitor at a local hospital. And even though she was already thinking ahead, she had always dreamed about becoming a paralegal. Her immediate goal, and a goal that she knew that she had to do before she can do anything else, was earning her GED. And so she had already passed the reading portion of the GED test on her own, but math was a major barrier, and that's where her pathway really took shape. Kelly began working with an Oakland Literacy Council volunteer. He was a math tutor, and they met regularly at the local library, often with her children sitting nearby at another table, and they focused on her weakest math areas that were preventing her from passing the GED math portion. But between the tutoring sessions, Kelly also used Essential Ed Online to practice independently. And none of the weekly lessons, of course, was about rushing toward a career decision or anything like that. It was just about strengthening one skill at a time and strengthening all of the skills that she had challenges with. And in August of 2024, Kelly passed the remaining GED test and was able to earn her diploma. And that was just enough motivation for her, because within days of obtaining that diploma, she took that next step and applied to the Oakland Community College. And she wanted to get into their paralegal program, and she was able to get in. And with the support, of course, the next challenge was, a financial, how am I going to pay for school? But with the support from Oakland Literacy Council's partnership of Oakland 80, a career navigator was able to work with Kelly and helped her apply for the Michigan Reconnect assistance, and she was able to receive tuition assistance to be able to go to school. And she started her paralegal program in January of 2025. And so she is still currently enrolled and continuing to move forward. So what's important here with the story is that Kelly's tutor wasn't necessarily acting as a career counselor. He was able to help her stay focused, helped her build confidence, helped her keep moving forward, was able to connect her to a resource, a partnership in our office, because that was her next step. So he was able to get her connected there, and that steady support made those next steps possible for her. So Kelly's story shows how learning goals and personal motivation and the right support can come together to move that learner forward. So now, what I'd like to do is maybe just take some time to take a look at some practical tools that you can use to help learners explore their interests and begin identifying career and education options without necessarily needing to have all the answers, of course. Okay, so the very first resource that I'd like to showcase is a free resource. It's called mynextmove.org. And it's a free, easy to use website. It was created by the US Department of Labor. And it's designed for people who are just beginning to explore career options. Maybe they're not quite sure what's out there. This isn't necessarily for someone who already knows exactly what they want to do. It's really for career exploration. And this makes it especially useful for adult learners who may feel unsure, maybe they're overwhelmed, or just completely unfamiliar with career planning. I'm going to actually jump into this resource briefly to walk you through a few things that I'd like you to see. But before I do that, there is one component, and I will show you this live, of course, but one component of mynextmove.org is a way for students to discover their career interests. This platform offers a direct link to the ONET Interest Profiler. And this profiler is a valuable tool that helps students identify interests and will match them up with potential career paths. And it's really all about aligning what they love to do, what they think that they would love to do with a career. And this is actually not just for students. It's a resource for anyone interested in exploring new possibilities. And I highly encourage everyone to maybe go through the profiler yourselves and see what your results are. I went ahead and did mine, and these are just a quick screenshot of what my results were. I had a high social score, which is surprising because I don't think of myself as the most social person or most outgoing person. But it shows that I like work that involves helping, teaching, advising, assisting, or providing service to others. And it says that I like to work with people, services, in social settings, health, or communication. And then it suggests a bunch of careers that I might be interested in. So I guess, when in doubt of, if I'm on the right path, it seems like I might be on that right path with my results here. Of course, there's other results that it provides. I also had a high enterprising score and a high conventional score, and it will share a little bit more about what those mean and what type of careers would work best with those interests. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to walk you through this website very quickly. And just bear with me one moment as I get through that. Okay, hopefully you are taking a look at my screen. If you can't see it, certainly let me know. But this is the My Next Move website. There's three areas that I'd like to highlight for you. You can explore careers in three different ways here with your student, or three main ways, I should say. You can search careers with keywords, or you can browse careers by industry, or you can go ahead and take that personality type test with your student and get some suggestions. So I will just point each of these out very quickly. The first one, and I'm just going to go with the default here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a search for electricians. And with this, it will take you to a profile for electricians. You can go through these pages with your student. If you're focusing on reading, you can have your student read it out loud. You can read it to them if you have an ESL student and maybe they can follow along and they can listen to what you're saying. But you can go through it. It shares what electricians do, what they would do on the job, the knowledge that they need, the skills that are needed, as well as the abilities. They need to have hand and finger use. They also need to have some verbal skills. They have to have attention to detail. So these are all good things that they need to be familiar with if they are interested in maybe going this path. And maybe there might be some things that they might need to develop. Also, personality suggestions here. They will have to have attention to detail. They need to be dependable. They have to have integrity, perseverance. Here's an opportunity to discuss these with your student. Maybe they don't know what these words mean, so it's vocabulary for your students as well, and you can discuss them. Then technology, what software or technology do they need to know? They have to know Microsoft Word. They need to know how to go through database software, or at least be comfortable learning how to use software. It shares what type of education they're going to need. In this case, it says they need to have a certificate after high school or a high school diploma or GED. It'll share what the job outlook is, as well as some additional ways to explore. So that is taking a look at a very specific profile for a career. So this is if they want to look something up. The next one is browse careers by industry. This one will allow students to go ahead and browse jobs in many different areas, whether it's finance or education or it's construction. You can browse through these different areas. I'm just going to select health and counseling as an example here. And then this will provide a list of different careers in health and counseling that they might want to go ahead and explore. You'll see these little icons, the ones that have a sun says that, those type of jobs have a bright outlook. So that's something interesting to point out to them. I'm just going to go ahead and select one as an example, and I'll just select one that has one for medical assistance. And it will jump you into a job profile. So I've already walked you through the electrician profile, so I won't go into this necessarily here. But as you can see, it provides all of that same information in the same format for this particular career. And so you can discuss all of these things with your student and, what's appropriate, of course. Interest profiler, the ONET interest profiler, can be accessed by just going through this purple box here and clicking on start. And this was those results that I had shared with you earlier. I have already taken this test, so I am actually going to click on continue where I left off. But you can certainly start over as many times as you want to go through the test. But I am going to go ahead and show you what the questions look like. So this is what the questions will look like when you go and start that process with your student. They're very simple. So, for example, the first question asked me, would I like to build kitchen cabinets? And I said, I strongly dislike that. And it's nice that it has a little icon so that if you have an ESL student, even if they may not be able to read this if they're like a beginner, you can go ahead and they can go based off of the icon image. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just a few. Would I want to develop a new medicine? I said, I strongly dislike that. Would I want to write a book or a play? I said I was unsure. Would I want to help people with personal or emotional problems? I might strongly like that. Would I want to manage a department? So again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I think you're getting the idea of how you can maybe go through these questions with your student. There's 30 questions, and you would just answer them along the way, and you will get results, right? So I am going to jump out of this, and I'm going to show you what the results would look like after taking, answering these questions. What you'll get is your results, okay? And based off of my responses, my top interests are social, enterprising, and conventional. And you can learn a little bit more about each of these by clicking on them. It'll show me, what my social interests look like, or what does enterprising mean, or what conventional might be. Now, all of these are based off of the RIASEC model. Some of you may be familiar with this or something similar if you've ever taken a test like this, maybe at work at some point. I know I've done similar tests like this in my career in the past, but it's based off of John Holland's theory that people are more satisfied and successful when their work matches their interests as well as their personality. And so there are 6 broad interest areas that describe most individuals and work. And so if you remember correctly, mine were social, enterprising, and conventional based off of my responses to those questions. But some people might be more artistic, some might be investigative, some might be more realistic, or a combination of any of these. And so based off of that, they're able to give suggestions on the type of careers that you might be interested in. One other thing that I'd like to showcase with these results is that what I can do now at this point after obtaining these results is I can take a look at career training and preparation to get these types of jobs based off of my interests. But what's unique about this is that I can select these jobs based off of little or no job preparation. So, if there's someone who is still in the process of obtaining their GED or doesn't have advanced education, they can take a look at jobs that require little or no job preparation. And the results for me that came up based off of my results are maybe a host or a hostess at a restaurant, coffee shop, maybe a recreation attendant, maybe even a sales worker or a vendor. But if I go back, I select something that requires more extensive job preparation, you'll see that I now have different suggestions. So if I were to obtain higher education, I can maybe consider things like career counseling, instructional coordinator, teaching assistants, mental health counselors. And if any of these are of interest, I can certainly go ahead and go into one of these and learn a little bit more about the education that I might need. Okay. So there's a lot here. And I think the best way for anyone to maybe kind of get familiar with this is just do it for yourself, see what type of results you might get. I think I found it very interesting. And so if you kind of work through this on your own, you'll have an easier time maybe working through this website with your students. So this is, again, all available on mynextmove.org. What are your thoughts on this website? Does anyone have any questions or thoughts that they might want to inquire about?
Very interesting and informative too.
It is, yeah. And almost, sometimes, in some cases, reassuring. For me, it was like, okay, I think I'm on my right path with the information that was provided. Okay,
Dinah, a
good.
quick
So
question. How did you
yes.
get to the ONET interest profiler on the mynextmove.org website again?
Yes. So from mynextmove.org from the website, just went to discover your interests and I clicked on start. And for me, because I already did this profile, like there's a profile that's already saved on my account, but if the first time that you're going in, it will start you like at step one and it will explain what you're going to do, very basic, and you'll start to answer the questions, the interest questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
Fortunately, my student is not looking for a job, but it's good to
It
know.
could still be,
I
yeah,
know
that
that
interest
that is, yeah,
profiler
correct.
is
Yeah,
still interesting to go through and see what
exactly.
results.
Yeah.
Because, it helps her talk about, who she is as a person. And, sometimes those are conversations that she might want to have in English. So yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Okay, so
Wanted
that's
to
my
add
next
that.
move dot.
Oh, I just wanted to add that
Yes, yes.
one of my learners is Korean, and she's going to go back home in 2 years. And in her 40s, she's not sure what that will look like. So I think that um, she would enjoy going through this and exploring and just thinking about, what I mean, going home is different and everything. This is very, I think, American oriented in a way, but certainly she has just no idea what finding a job would be like or what she'd like to do. So I think that would be fun for us to go through this and her to think about the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I found it enjoyable just for myself too, going through it and, seeing what my results were. And, I think that they're pretty much in line with results I've received in the past. Some things I think have changed about myself. Like if I would have taken this, maybe 20 years ago, it might be much different, but it's interesting to see how it's evolved, even if it's just a little bit. Good. All right. Well, I'm glad that you think that this could be helpful. Um, and it looks like someone's already told their college kids about it too. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, feel free to share with anyone who's, trying to find, what their path might be. Okay. So, I want to share that, if you just want some guidance working through this website, we did create a lesson plan to help you with it. It's ready to go. It just walks you through how you might introduce the tool to your student and how you might explore a career together. And it's not meant to be followed word for word. Just use it as a guide as you kind of go through the website, whether you have just 10 minutes to introduce it to them briefly, if they're, their digital skills are, pretty good. They might be able to do it on their own. And that could be homework for them. Or, you can have a full session or you can go through the website over a course of a few lessons as well. So it's completely up to you and what you think is appropriate for you and your student. Okay, so let me share a link to that really quick in the chat. And we'll keep moving along. Okay, so the next resource that I want to share is a website that is going to focus on high demand jobs in Michigan, and it's called Roadmap to Opportunity. This website is especially useful for learners who want something that's concrete and they want to know what job opportunities that are local in the area and what's available in Michigan and what's hot. So it's again focuses on Michigan careers, and it also shows that there are some really great jobs out there that don't always require that 4-year degree or that college degree. Many of the careers that are highlighted on this website start with short-term training or maybe even just an associate's degree or even just some credentialing, some certificates, and it offers them opportunities to grow. So I am going to share this resource with you, walk you through it really quick. Okay, so this is the website, Roadmap to Opportunity, and it's the number 2, not 2. in the link, and I'll be sharing a link to a lesson plan for this as well. But it's a very easy to use website. Again, shows high demand, high wage jobs available in Michigan. There's not a whole lot to this website, but there's a lot of great information. So there are 11 jobs or careers that are highlighted on this website: carpentry, dental, electrical technology, HVAC, information technology, insurance, machine tool technology, physical therapy, plumbing and pipe fitting, respiratory care, as well as utility technology. So you can jump to any of these from this menu, or all you can do, you can just scroll down the page and they're all listed as well. So you'll see that all 11 of these have a video as well as a pathway map to showcase what that pathway would look like for a student that is interested in any of these areas. For our purposes here today, I would like to share a video here just so that you can get an idea for, what these videos share. A lot of great information. And then I'm going to share you a link to this pathway map so you can see what else is available. But these videos are very engaging. I think, for our ESL students, it helps them with listening, engaging for our GED students. So it's definitely a great website. It's easy to use, so they can go to this website on their own and explore on their own as well.
Can grow somebody into that role. They come in.
Let me start it from the beginning.
Everything you do, you have to touch a computer some way, shape, or form. Moving to automation and getting things a little bit faster and easier.
The world would be a much slower pace.
Yeah, a lot of inefficiencies, a lot of lost people without their GPS, so yeah.
I was the IT person for my family. Anyone has an issue with his cell phone or his laptop would approach me and ask me how to do this, how to fix this. And this is where it came that I found out that I'm passionate about IT.
I'm a big believer that you learn by doing. We could sit in class all day, lecture, but if you're physically in class, mentally somewhere else, that will not help you as a student. So the easiest way to do this is to make sure that they're participating in class through the hands-on activities. One of the things that I go through is go over the course syllabus and start identifying the common course outcomes that we have and how it would apply when they're actually getting a job doing this for a living. So I encourage my students to get a job before they graduate, and I have a good success rate of students finishing their 2-year degree and they're already getting a job and doing this for a living.
I found that OCC is very effective at teaching their students applicable technology. It was a wonderful surprise to find that we could take an OCC student right out of the classroom and they not only have the book knowledge but the hands-on knowledge as well in order to be effective almost day one.
You're learning technology and technology gets outdated really fast. We always change our curriculum to make sure that we're staying up to date with what the market is actually in need for.
CIOs will tell you that their biggest struggle is finding suitable talent to fill their needs. We decided to develop a program called the Academy Model in order to solve our own problem.
I'm part of the Academy model at Secure24 by making all the information that you need documented and available so you can request a time from your manager or your supervisor to work on your objectives.
What we do is we take, entry-level individuals and we give them a program. It's 12 different objectives, and then there's various different growth opportunities within those objectives. They want to make sure that you're a well-rounded technologist, so it can be networking, database, etc.
And once you're done with them, you get hired and you get a raise. So you are the only one who decides when you will get promoted.
Before we look outside for, external employees, we look internally to see if we can grow somebody into that role. They come into Secure24 with this hunger, and then just given all the information, it's almost natural for them to grow and develop very, very quickly here.
Once I got into college, I liked the environment, and my family encouraged me to get a degree and then pursue a master and PhD.
We would like to keep you forever here at Secure 24. However, people want to see demonstrated successes, including diplomas, certifications, etc. So I would always say if you have the desire to go back to school, go back to school.
We do have certificates, we do have a 2-year degree, but that's where it doesn't end there. Actually, this is just the beginning. Continue on with your education. That's the best advice that I'll give to students.
Get the hardware, play around with it, see if it's something that you really, really want to do. So I think it's probably one of the most exciting fields that we have, just because it's never going to be stagnant, so you'll never be bored.
Never give up. Since you're going to be troubleshooting most of the day. So never give up, just keep working at it until it works.
All right, so that's just a sample of one of the videos. All of these career areas have a similar video. As you could see, they're very engaging. Students really enjoy watching these. After watching a video, and if it's something that they're interested in maybe learning a little bit more, pursuing, you can go ahead and share the pathway map. It's just linked right next to the video. And it is a handout with more information about that career path. And in this particular case, it shares some more information about how it's a hot job in Michigan, the classes that they would take. And then also what I like about this is that it shares where the available programs are, and you'll see that they're at various colleges and community colleges within Michigan. And then also it encourages them that they're to maybe fill out a FAFSA application if they do need some financial help, and that there's some assistance with that. What's nice about this handout as well is that it shares, what their salary can be with the amount of education that they get. So if they take that first step and get certificates, they can get a job as a support specialist, and they'll earn something like, 47,000. If they get an associate's degree, you'll see that the salary increases. If they get a bachelor's degree, they can get jobs like a software developer, and then again, their salary continues to increase, as well as a master's degree. They can be a network architect, and start receiving salary above 100,000. So it's nice for them to see, with the level of effort and education and schooling that they get, where they can get to. But of course, it all starts with taking that first step and maybe exploring that possibility by going to college. So that is Roadmap to Opportunity. Again, that's really all there is with this website. It's the 11 careers. You can go ahead and explore them with your student, watch the video, and then go through those pathway maps. Okay, what are your thoughts on this tool?
I think it's
Anyone have?
yeah, I
Go
think
ahead.
I think it's excellent. I think that these many times, I know for me, well, I was living in Michigan, but it's where to connect to this information. This is very practical. This is not abstract. This is specifically going from like, not my next move, define who you are, what your interests are. You get that sense of it, and then it just goes, it's connecting the dots. Okay, now I know what I want to do. Well, how do I get there? And this is very hands-on practical. I think it's excellent.
Yeah, and it's very like, it's a low entry point. So this isn't intimidating. These websites aren't intimidating. They're very easy to use, gives really good information. I know this would have been helpful, I think for a lot of people at the start of their careers. Oftentimes you think of like, oh, I'm going to be a doctor or I'm going to be a lawyer, just these like, very broad career paths. And sometimes, we don't always think about some of these other areas and areas of growing areas and hot jobs. So having a resource like this can be helpful for a lot of our students who are looking for those pathways. Someone says here that, or yeah, Jeff, saying that this might be maybe for some of our advanced ESL learners. Yeah, definitely kind of gauge where your student is at, especially if you have an ESL student. The video might be something that is a little bit more advanced, for an advanced student. I do want to point out, I know not all of you have Spanish speaking students, but if you do, you are going to be able to translate the website into Spanish. The video, I don't think would be able to translate, but you would be able to at least translate some of the content into Spanish. So that's just something to think about it. But yes, if it's appropriate, certainly feel free to use this resource with your students. Okay. All right. So it was similar to the other resource. I do want to share that I created a lesson plan for this website. So again, it's just a way to guide you through using this resource with your student. I'll go ahead and share a link to it. But again, it is housed on that main website. But there is that lesson plan. Okay, so the next tool I want to highlight is Burlington English online. If you have an ESL student, this may already be familiar to you. You may already be using it. You may have already discovered what I'm going to share with you. And while it's primarily designed for our English language learners, there are some career modules that can be valuable for our reading and math students as well. These lessons that are in Burlington English help our students build workplace English, workplace English vocabulary or career-related vocabulary while they're exploring different job roles. And there's lessons for like workplace expectations that I think that can also be valuable for our math and reading and GED students. So something to consider. If you find that you want access to Burlington English because you don't have an ESL student, just let us know in the office. And depending on how many seats we have available, we may be able to open up an account for your student if you do want to walk through some of those lessons with your math. But any ESL student should already have access because I believe we're setting them up with automatic access to this resource once they join us as a student. Okay, but the lessons include the short videos, listening activities, there's reading practice, which can all be useful during your tutoring sessions. So I want to just take a moment and walk you through the resource and point these areas out for you. All right, so once you log into Burlington English, if you're familiar with Burlington English already, you'll recognize this. But you'll see that in the courses area, that's the first area that I'd like to point you to. You are probably, if you're already working with your students, you're probably working through general English lessons, depending on what level your student is at. So you might already be familiar with this area. But if you go down this menu over down to careers, you'll see that there are lessons for career exploration as well as soft skills. And there are also lessons for workforce preparation, ready to work. So these are, more so like on the job type of lessons. Depending on your student, you may want to start at the beginner level or you may want to start at the advanced. If you're not sure where to begin, I always say, kind of start a little lower than you might think that might be appropriate for your student, just so that they feel confident and they don't feel discouraged with any of the content that's in here. And just as an example, I'm going to jump into one of these. I'll go into intermediate. Refresh my page here. There we go. And there are in-class lessons as well as student lessons and vocabulary practice. For our purposes, I'm going to highlight the in-class lessons. And there are various lessons that you can go through. You can go in order, where a student talks about their career pathway, their background, their personality, their skills. You can go into specific career clusters if you want to go into something specific, like something like health science or something like that. But also you can go into some soft skill lessons, like getting a job or having effective relationships at work. So just as an example, I'm going to jump into communicating with customers. Just want to confirm you're able to see my screen, correct? You're able to, okay, great. The lesson, of course, is going to be very similar to the other lessons that you're doing in Burlington English. It's just going to be more career focused, of course. So there's always an introduction to the lesson to get them thinking about what the content is going to be about. There is going to be usually a scenario to think about and provide context to that particular lesson. And then there's going to be some questions to go along with it. Always vocabulary and phrases, right? So here are some words or vocabulary that allows a student to think about communicating with customers, especially if maybe they have like a retail job or want to get some type of a retail job. You know, how do you greet a customer? What are phrases to say, like have a nice day, how can I help you? Things like that. And so they can practice that. Again, just more practice, of course, with those phrases and using that vocabulary and conversation. And then there's other things that they can practice, like if they have to take phone calls at work, how do you take a phone message for someone, right? So there's some listening that's available. They have to listen to a message and answer questions and put the responses where they belong. So this helps them develop those skills of taking phone messages at work and relaying that message over to colleagues or your manager if you need to. So this is just a sample of a lesson. Again, there's beginner versions of these things as well as advanced. Choose what you think is appropriate. You don't need to go in order necessarily. You certainly can. I think it's helpful to go in order, but if something is of importance to one of your students, certainly jump into it. So for example, if you just want to do the time management lesson, you can certainly go ahead and talk about time management with your students. So, this could be a valuable lesson regardless of what area that you're tutoring in. So those are the in-class lessons for Burlington English. The other thing that I'd like to point out is that there is English for specific careers. So this supports students that may have a job or are looking to get into a field, and you want to help them develop their vocabulary in English, and then also provide some other resources as well for specific careers. So there's 3 areas where they can work through. There are word lists for specific careers. So if you have a student that is in the health sciences, you can go to health science, and if they are going to be like a nursing assistant or they're a home health aide, you can click on these and it will provide vocabulary practice for them, and it allows them to go through vocabulary categories. So they can go through parts of the body, medical conditions, treatments, caring for the client, equipment. And so there's vocabulary for each of those that they can go ahead and practice. Outside of careers, I sometimes like going through the vocabulary practice with students because, everyone goes to the doctor. So some of these vocabulary words can be helpful. So I like to use them in different ways, but wanted to point that out specifically here for this related workshop.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
and my first question is, I think I might need, if you're available, a phone call at 1:30 from you, or to find out when you do have some time available, because my question on Burlington, I am familiar with it, is I was talking with my student and she was describing to me a little bit about the student part of Burlington that she works on at home. And I was thinking, can I have access to looking at the student program so I see what she's looking at? She was trying to describe something to me. Is that possible?
Oh, yeah, you should have access to it.
Yeah.
So like for example, if you were doing one of these in-class lessons, I'm sorry, go back here. Well, actually, yeah, let me go through this. The time management. Uh, you should be able to see the matching student lesson for that as well. It's similar. It's
Yeah.
going to be just slightly different than what you might do, but she can send it to you because as an instructor, you have access to both the student lessons as well as the instructor lessons.
So
She does not, yes, she doesn't have access to instructor lessons, but you have access to both.
She can send me the link.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She grabbed the link at the top, send it to you. And when you log into Burlington English, you should be taken right to it. If you have any issues with that, of course, let us know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay.
So that's Burlington English. Again, I am not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. I know a lot of you are already familiar, but I did want to go ahead and point that out for those of you who might want to use it with your students.
Dinah,
So let me
real
go
quick,
back.
did you see the
Yes.
last message in the chat from 108 about
Okay.
the I think the career exploration?
Let's see. To share with my pasties. Yes, so any of the resources that we're sharing, they're all like free to use. Anyone has access to them, with the exception of Burlington English. Of course, you need to be a current student to have access to it. You're more than welcome to share those resources. In fact, the more we can spread the word about these resources to really anyone in our network, I think the better we are in helping our community, not just, of course, our students. But yes, absolutely, go ahead and share that. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so I went ahead and I created a handout for Burlington English as well. I did not create a lesson plan specifically for Burlington English because the lessons are already built in. You don't need to create a lesson with Burlington English. Just go in there and follow the lesson as is. And, of course, ask your own questions and guide your student through those. But what I did create is a tutor quick guide that's going to help you find those career lessons and the career specific related, like the word list. So I'm going to go ahead and share that link with you in the chat. And again, it's just going to direct you to all of those. So there it is. Okay, so now that you've seen what all of these tools offer, how they work, and how you might use them with your student, I want you to think about what you might want to use with your current students. Each of these tools offer different entry points, like I said. Some of them might be easier to use depending on the level of your student. If you have a very beginner student, maybe some of these tools may not quite be right. Maybe it's something like Burlington English that might be more helpful than maybe one of these websites. And you don't need to use all of them. The key is choosing what fits best for your student and where they're at and what their goals are. And what matters most isn't necessarily the tool itself, but it's how can we spark these conversations with our student? How can we build confidence and connect learning every day and them coming to you every week with what comes next. So just quickly in the chat, maybe out of all of these three resources, either My Next Move, Roadmap to Opportunity, or Burlington English, which one of these resources feels like it might be a good fit for your student right now with where they're at? Feel free to just go ahead and send a quick message in the chat. Okay, looks like the ONET profiler. Okay, My Next Move. Okay, Burlington English for some people. Okay, Well, good. Well, I'm glad that you're already thinking about maybe what might work with your student and what might be helpful. So thank you so much for sharing. Great. Okay, so the next thing I want to share is, we've been talking a lot about helping our learners explore their interests and imagine possibilities, but the next step is helping learners connect to support beyond tutoring. And that's where our partner organizations come in. So you don't need to have all the answers because these partners specialize in education and training and career navigation. Okay, so the first partner I want to highlight is Oakland 80, and they focus on supporting our learners who are interested in post-secondary education, including college and certificate programs. And the Oakland 80 navigators provide one-on-one guidance with applications, education planning, and financial aid. And this is especially helpful for students who feel overwhelmed or intimidated by the college process, or they just don't know where to start. And what's amazing about this program is that we actually have a dedicated Oakland 80 navigator that is at our office on a part-time basis. Her name is Anelia, and I've provided her email address here. I am also going to provide it to you in a handout, so you'll also have access to it that way. But if you think that your student is interested in getting education and trying to navigate that, you do not need to contact us. Feel free to just contact Anelia directly and maybe facilitate that. That transfer with your student. You can help as little as or as much as you want or whatever you feel comfortable, but really Anelia is so helpful that she really can take it from there. I know maybe some of you have already taken advantage of this support that we have in the office, and students can come into the office and set up those appointments with Anelia if they do want to meet with her in person. And what's great about Oakland 80 is it's not just limited to just our students. Really, anyone in Oakland County who is eligible for these services can take advantage of it. The next partner organization that I'd like to mention is Oakland County Michigan Works, and they have two programs that I'd like to put a spotlight on. But before I discuss the programs, I want to clarify that students do not need a referral to contact Michigan Works. Anyone can reach out directly to their local Michigan Works office for employment support. But the one program I want to start off with is the RAIN program, and it's part of Michigan Works, and it's designed to support immigrants and refugees as they navigate education, training, and employment. There are RAIN navigators that are available at each of the Michigan Works locations in Oakland County, and they can help students understand their options and connect them to resources and help them take those next steps toward work or education. And this can especially be helpful for students who are new to the US and are unfamiliar with how systems work here. So if a learner expresses any interest in employment and they don't really know where to start or need some assistance, then you can certainly go ahead and direct them over to their local Michigan Works office. In many cases, some of our students have come from the Michigan Works office. Some of them are referred to us, so they may already be familiar with it. But if they're unfamiliar with it, you can certainly go ahead and direct them over to that. Okay. So what about, I'm getting a question, what about students who have a degree from their home country? Should I refer to Michigan Works for assistance? I'm so glad you asked that, because I'm going to share with you another program that Michigan Works offers. It's the second Michigan Works program that I'd like to highlight, and it is the Skilled Immigrant Integration Program. And this program supports immigrants who were trained or worked in an advanced profession outside of the US. And this particular program helps students understand how their education or their experience may transfer here in the United States. And they offer services like transcript evaluation and credentialing, which is such a wonderful resource because oftentimes I think people wonder, what their education could do here in the US and if any of it transfers, sometimes they could get credit for some of the work that they've already done if they do want to go back to school. And so this is especially important for students who may already have strong skills or higher ed, but don't know how to continue in their field. So again, what's wonderful about this program is that we do have um, a contact. Her name is Elisa Echeverria, and she is a global talent job coach. I believe she's actually based out of the Troy office, and she would be able to assist any of your students. You can contact her directly if you feel like your student would like some assistance here. If you do want us to kind of facilitate that referral, we can certainly go ahead and do it, but you don't need to. And if you want to help your student out with as much or as little with this, that's perfectly fine as well. But there is her contact information. This particular program does have some eligibility criteria, but you don't have to determine that. If you feel like this particular program could assist your students, I would at least reach out and see if it's a possibility. Okay, so I know that was a lot of information, and again, I don't expect you to remember it all. So I did create a handout for all three of these programs that will be available to you, and you may not need it now, but I am going to share it with you so that if in the future, maybe if something comes up and you think that one of these resources could help your student out, then you'll know where to go and some contact information to go along with it. Okay, so we're pretty much at time, but before we wrap up, I just wanted to take a moment to review the information that we discussed today and some takeaways and reflect on what we might do next. So I also just want to remind everyone how you'll be able to access the handouts and where the recording will be housed and answer maybe any remaining questions that you have. But just in terms of takeaways, a few things I want to highlight. Career exploration is about choosing a job, right? Or isn't about choosing a job necessarily. It's about, helping our students build their motivation, their confidence, and awareness of what's possible. And as tutors, your role is to guide reflection and conversation, not necessarily be career counselors. And the tools that we explored today are meant to be used in small and flexible ways. We don't want any of these tools to be intimidating for our students, of course. And even just simple conversations that you have about careers or education is something that you can do to help your learner take meaningful steps and maybe guide them along the way. Before we close, I'd love for you to think about maybe just one small action you take. I know we're talking a lot about our students and what's one small step that our students are going to take, but what's one small action we can take as tutors? And it can be anything, whether it is checking out one of the websites or maybe reaching out to one of the partner organizations, or maybe it's just connecting with our office again for maybe additional assistance. Maybe what we covered here today isn't quite right for your student. So what's that next step for you and what does that look like? Okay, so it looks like maybe Burlington English might be a good next step. Taking the O-Net test. Wonderful. So I'm glad that you're already thinking about that next small step on your end, just like we're going to expect our students to think about their next small step. Okay, reviewing goals. Great. Good. So just as a reminder, all of the handouts and lesson plans we referenced today are going to be on a dedicated page. It's the same page that I've been sharing quite a bit. I just want to make sure everyone has access to it. And there you can come back to it at any point. I'm going to send an email out with a recording that will also have this link in it as well. And we'll be uploading this workshop to YouTube. So you'll just need to give us some time to upload it, but it will be accessible and we'll share it out in our monthly newsletter as well. So you can access it in that way. And if you have any questions about your student needing additional guidance, our program coordinators are always here to support you. So feel free to contact us with any help. If you have a moment, I'd love if you could provide some feedback about today's workshop and if it was helpful. I'm going to share a link to it. You feel free to do it now, or you can do it at another time. Maybe if you can't get around to it right away, feel free to do it when you receive the follow-up email. I'll also include it in there as well. Love to get your feedback so that we're always improving our content for our tutors as well as our students.
I have a
And
question.
yes, absolutely. I'm happy to take any questions. I know some
I
people might have to drop off, so I just want to briefly take a moment to thank everyone for being here and for all of the meaningful work that you're doing with your learners every week. Your support helps open doors and create opportunities. So thank you so much for your attention. And don't hesitate to reach out if you need us. But I'm happy to stick around as long as we need to address any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dinah.
Yeah, thank you.
question. I don't know whether
Yes.
would it for my previous student who has grown kids. She dropped out during COVID because she didn't have many computers to attend the class.
Okay.
So is it okay to share the link which you've given for some of these Michigan works, etc.?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes,
So is
please
that
do so.
okay?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
they're available for anyone. So all those resources are meant, for anyone interested, in Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
they're just free to use websites that they're not specific to Oakland Literacy Council, but
Okay,
they're
thank you.
resources that are out there that a
Yeah,
lot of
I
people
think
don't know
so.
about. I didn't know about them.
Exactly. Yes, I know. They're very, very
So
helpful. And so
yeah,
was
they
the
are.
session.
Oh, good. Thank you for your
Very,
feedback. I appreciate
very
it.
helpful. Even though my student is not interested in looking for a job, I thought it would be very nice to just keep it and share it with somebody who is interested.
Yeah, and you never know if you take on another student that they might
Yes,
need this
I know.
information. It can be
Because
helpful.
mine is an
So,
advanced student also, so I'm sure she might pass out when she takes the next test. So, well, anyway,
exactly.
don't want to take up too much
Good.
of your time.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
well, thank you for joining.
Thanks.
Have a good
Yep.
weekend.
You too.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Dinah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anyone else have questions?
No, I'm trying to find your link.
Oh, the link to all the resources?
Yeah. No, the
Oh, the
one where
survey
you
link.
sent your review. So
There's the
that's
survey.
okay. When you send it,
Oh, yeah.
I'll.
Yes, I put it in the
Oh,
chat, but I will also put it in the email. Yep.
okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Dinah, here's a
You're welcome.
question from me. When we conclude this
Yes.
session, now, do you have 10 minutes to walk through and troubleshoot one techie issue with me for Burlington?
Yes, yeah, I'll see if anyone else has any questions that, before anyone drops off. And
Okay.
I will also just stop recording. And then, I will go ahead and address any questions. Yeah, because I certainly have time to be able to do that. And actually, let me go ahead and maybe I'll just stop the recording at this point.